Hi everybody, this is Marianne. I've been practicing over 30 years as a lawyer and analyzing the law. Now I'm analyzing the hands, and people are very much surprised and think that it's a completely different job, but it is not, because I'm still an analyst, and analyzing the hands is more or less like analyzing the law. You have a lot of specific, different information you have to put together like a puzzle and find a solution oriented, tailor-made for the person who has to live with this specific situation, be it for the law, be it for the hands. The second point, why it's not so different, but it is much more rewarding for me, is that the hands do not lie. The hands are more honest than law, because the hands cannot be manipulated, whilst you know perfectly the law can be interpreted in a way or another. The hands are also more reliable because they do not depend on specific political or economical conditions. The hands are there, the hands are yours, and that's why they are more honest and reliable. The topic I want to address today is specifically addressed to the kids. As you know, the title is "And the Child Will Love You." So why is it so important for me to talk about the relationship between children and parents? Because according to my experience, this relationship is the deepest, the most important, but also the most complex and difficult to live with. How many times did you hear yourself say, "Oh, this is typical your father, this is typical your grandmother," and so on. So the issue that we have to, if we have more information, objective information, independent information about our kids, then it's much more easier to live together. So that is my job, and this is what I would like to bring you nearer today, telling about what we are doing as hand analysts. You won't believe it, but kids normally enjoy to do fingerprints, and this is what we do. We put some color on their hands and then have the hand printed. The fingerprints in general will be specifically put on the paper separately in order to be 100% sure that they are correct, because the slightest error in a fingerprint may bring you to a wrong or not accurate valuation. Once we have the fingerprints, and we start normally with the fingerprints, as I said, which are final and do not change during whole lifetime, then we analyze them. We have 4 different types of fingerprints. We will talk about this in a separate chapter of this session, and we will also know, based on the fingerprints, what is your biggest potential and where lies your weaknesses and deficits. After the fingerprints, we will have a look at the rest of the hand, the lines, the 4 major lines, specific marks and signs, the form of the hand. I mean, you have dozens of informations, and that's why I come back to the issue. All these pieces of information are very helpful, and if you put them together, you will have a complete picture of the person, of the individual you have in front of you. Okay, Shall we go into details of the fingerprints? Are you ready? We have 4 basic types of fingerprints. Of course, there are also combinations, but for this session, it's sufficient to know what these basic fingerprints do say and show to the analyst. I start with the left upper type of fingerprints, and this is called the arch. The arch person is, now I'm listing the positive elements of this person, and afterwards the less positive, the critical issues. The positive side of this person is that they are loyal, they are concrete, they are skilled, normally with manual or outdoor work. They like to touch things with their hands. They're not the intellectual type necessarily. They are reliable and honest, right to the point, and you know which person you have in front of you. The more critical issues of this personality is that they may be stubborn, unforgiving. They do not trust too much the others. They normally prefer to do things themselves because then they know how it's done and they know the consequences. This means that they normally do also have difficulties to delegate, and this is for a job, for example, to be responsible for a big team is not the best of the attitudes. They often are surprise adverse. They do not like surprises. They want to have their routine in life. Sometimes they may suffer from a lack of responsiveness, are in general introvert, so you have to insist on telling what they feel, what they think. And for them, life constitutes a hard work, a fight, a challenge. And they get up in the morning and say, well, another day to conquer and to survive. Let's go to the second type, which is the so-called tainted arch type of fingerprint. This fingerprint is like the arch type of fingerprint, very rare. The other fingerprints we will discuss afterwards, we will see afterwards, are much more frequent. So the tainted arch, if you have a tainted arch, then you are in general a person enthusiastic, curious, quick, have a strength for foresight, to see perhaps trends, you see in advance things going perhaps to happen, be it professionally, be it it could also be in a fashion or whatever type of activity. We can call it cutting edge capacity. The more critical side of this personality is that they may be, for the others, may result distant, a bit cool, arrogant. They can also escape, of the tendency to escape if something is not like they would like it to be. They may also have a fanatical side. They insist, they think, no, it has to be like I think it. And perhaps they think too much because they are much in their mental space. And this corresponds to what this type is attributed, which is the air as an element, the air element, whilst the arch type is the earth element. Now we come to the most frequent type of fingerprints, which is the loop. Almost 60%, around 60% of the fingerprints are in loop version. You find a loop version. How do these people function? They are in positive aspects, they are easygoing, adaptable, versatile, searching for harmony, are sensitive, good-natured, oriented towards the others, but also oriented towards the future, seek variety, are happy to do things with other people. On the critical side, they might go with the flow too much. They might be jack of all trades, not decisive, also a bit too curious, perhaps a bit gossipy. They feel guilty if somebody does not feel happy, because they are looking for harmony, and if this harmony doesn't exist, they often feel guilty, and then they feel bad, and they don't know, what did I do, what I did wrong, and either close up or become aggressive. So these persons have to learn to say what they feel, even if they think that the other person is not keen on hearing this. We call it the risk of the emotional exposure. The last type is the most fiery and is the so-called wall. The wall is also the most complex, as you see. It's from a design point of view, very nice and very complex, and that's why these persons are also quite complex in the sense that they are intense, they are individualistic, they are maybe eccentric, they feel often a bit different than the others. They perhaps have extremely high standards, they want to be the best, they are perfectionists, and the negative side of this is that they do not allow themselves mistakes. They feel so bad if they do not stand up to their standards, keep up to their standards, and then they feel miserable. The fire is getting off from one moment to another sometimes. They get also easily bored, so if you have a child with this type of fingerprints, it's very important to know that it's a child who wants to do many things, who loves to try this and that, and you have to help these kids not to feel bored, but on the other hand also that they stick to something, that they learn to do something right until the end. Because otherwise, in any case, they will not feel well if they do not succeed. They are looking for a quest. They want to serve. They want to do something which serves the humanity. And they like to do something which has a sense. And this is important to know, that they are not materialistic oriented persons. It has to have a meaning, what they do and how they live. Okay, these are the fingerprints, and now I would like to go to some of the important line formation. This is the heart line. Here you see the hairline, and this is the lifeline. The heart line is very important to understand and to know how your kid functions on an emotional level, also the emotional responsiveness and the capacity for affection. It tells you also about the expectations and needs of this person, of this kid, and the behavior in love, in friendship, and later on in intimate relationships. So you better have a close look to how the heart line is being drawn, even if I have to say that all lines, contrary to the fingerprints, may change. So this is good news. You know that if you live your life, you're in case of the heart line, your emotional life in a specific way, it may change in accordance with your behavior, your capacity, and emotional responsiveness. The left hand upper side is the so-called Donna heart line. We gave them names in order to distinguish more easily and also for you to remember better. And as a matter of fact, many clients and in particular also friends call then her or his behavior in accordance with these lines. And I hear them say, oh, I acted like a Donna, and so on. And this is funny, you know, it becomes enjoyable when you know what is written in your hands, and you can also laugh sometimes. So the Donna heart line is the heart line which likes to give, likes to pay attention to the others. For example, and as you can say, this person have an open door for everybody, a soup for everybody. And the critical side is that they depend on this interaction. And if this interaction does not fulfill their desires or expectations, then they feel bad or even guilty in accordance with other aspects of their hands and for example, their fingerprints. The right hand side type of heart line is so-called Gina. It's in honor of Gina Lollobrigida. The young persons will not know her anymore, but was one of the sex symbols of our times. And she was very extrovert, she is very fiery, and she wants to be in the middle of the attention. Ha, look, here I am. And that's what they need. They need attention. They need affection. They need to be in the middle of what is happening. If they come into a room, they want to be seen, and they love to be seen. They might be also quite straightforward and materialistic and know what they want and go directly to their choose people they think could help them reach certain goals. The third type of heart line is this romantic, we call it a romantic, idealistic person who wants to change the world, who wants to help all the kids, the animals, and they have normally high ideals. They often finish in Red Cross activities or helping persons or also animals who they think need their help. On the negative side, they are very sensitive. They don't like to be criticized. They have difficulties to cope with the reality of life sometimes, which can be brutal, which can be hard, and therefore quite lunatic and difficult to deal with. They need a lot of affection and a lot of affirmation that they are going the right direction, and if possible, that be sustained by the persons next to them. The last heart line type perhaps seems to be the most easy, because it's straightforward. It's the Clint Eastwood, in honor of Clint Eastwood, you know, the cool, the Marlboro type of person you think has everything under control, but underneath they might be extremely sensitive and vulnerable. So don't let yourself guide too much from the outside of this heart line. They might be control, they might be cool and do as if they have everything under control, but mustn't be. If you combine the fingerprints with one of these heart lines, it's extremely interesting to see if there are so-called dilemmas, or as we call it also delicious dilemmas, in the sense that if you have a arch type of person, you remember I said they are very, very concrete. They stick to something. They are fixed. They have fixations. They have they don't like to be emotionally too much addressed, and so on. If they have an arch, a fingerprint, and then they have a donor heart line, it's a delicious dilemma. It doesn't, you know, on the one hand, this person wants to give, wants to be with people, to interact, and on the other hand, from an inner point of view, from a subconscious point of view, they are very reserved, introvert. So this gives a dilemma, and they have to cope with this. And you, if this is your kid with such a constellation, you can give help, and you can sustain these directions in a positive sense, because every information from the hand has positive and less positive sides. So it's just up to you and to lift the positive side, or up to you as parents to help the kid to live the positive side and learn to manage the difficult traits, be them unconscious in the fingerprints or in the personality level of the lines and other marks. Let's have a look at a very specific combination of line, the so-called simian. It's extremely rare, and you can imagine what happens if a heart line on the headline, as you see here on this picture, are together. You have two extremely important activities of your personality in the same tube, in the same channel, in the same line. So you have a continuous fight, but you can also have a continuous strengthening of either emotional or the mental qualities you are living. The point is that it is a continuous, an energy which goes in the head and which goes in the heart. And where are you? You have to be aware where you are. And for example, one of the qualities of these persons are that they may concentrate, that they may focus on something which is impressing, which has no comparison. I know it very well because my son has two of these simian lines. If you have a kid with this hand, or if you have a partner, if you have somebody working with this line, you know now that they are very intense, very concentrated, very focused, but can be extremely distant and also cold, and sometimes become victim of their dilemma inside the fight between the head and the heart, and take a wrong decision, as we, for example, now did our Tony Blair, who has 2 simian lines. Most of the politicians agree that he made a wrong decision in relation to the Iraq war, and we know that now we have to take, the whole world has to take the consequences of this decision. Fine. Thank you for listening to me so far. It gave you perhaps a small insight of the useful information the hands may give you, and this is an invitation to have it done for your kid, for yourself, because as you know, we often beat up ourselves for nothing, and now you know that it's for nothing as long as the fingerprints are concerned, because the fingerprints are individual, personally, and do not change the whole life. So you better know not only yours, but in particular those of your kids, in order to make your daily life more joyful and more interesting also, because you can start to work on this. And I'm convinced you will enjoy it, and you will be happy, and when you're happy, the child will love you.